Now, breaking news this afternoon, drama after drama, as I said earlier. Advocate Malesela Teffo making a U-turn and says he'll remain as counsel for the 4 of the accused in the Senzo Meyiwa murder trial. What does this actually mean? Let's quickly get some initial reaction and insights with legal expert Zola Majavu. Mr. Majavu, thank you very much for your time. I know it was very much at short notice, but we just wanted to get a sense from you. What could this all mean? We understand there are now papers in front of the court in which Advocate Teffo says, no, I'm back as counsel for accused number 1 to 4, and he's written to all sorts of people, but we will not be in court come the 2nd of August, next week, Tuesday. Firstly, if he's written that he's back, is he back automatically because he stepped down in that dramatic fashion in the court a few weeks ago?
Good afternoon, Braden, and good afternoon to your viewers. Firstly, when a representative of any party before the court withdraws and the court accepts that withdrawal and you are excused, that is the end of it. Because when you withdrew, you still had to seek the permission of the court to be excused. That was done. Now, if for whatever reason he contends that he is back, it is not automatic. He will have to go before the court and say whatever issues that animated his decision to withdraw have now been resolved. And depending on what he says before the court, he may well be readmitted back. Remember, we're not dealing with a withdrawal of a lawyer perhaps who withdraws because his fees have not been paid. If that were the case, you could easily come back before the court and say, I now have been placed with financial instructions and that issue has been resolved. And the court may want a guarantee that you have sufficient cover so that this type of reasoning does not reoccur, resulting in your withdrawal. In this instance, Mr. Teffo raised very substantive issues, rightly or wrongly, which, if they were to be investigated and proven to be correct, they may well have muddied this particular trial. The question is, does he still regard the same judge as accused number 1? Does he still believe that he is being plotted at the highest level in the country to an extent that it affects his ability as counsel to represent his client? All of those issues have not been resolved. I have also had the privilege of seeing an affidavit or a letter that he addressed to the National Director of Public Prosecutions, or as well as Advocate Baloyi. The first thing that struck me is that in instances where you appear as counsel, having been instructed by an attorney, you do not as counsel write to your opposite number. It is Mr. Tobani who on his letterhead ought to have addressed a letter to the NDPP raising whatever he wants to raise. This particular letter which I've seen is written and signed for by himself as counsel, which is quite bizarre. But the second issue is he would still have to go before the same judge and explain himself. Thirdly, he says he's not going to be in court on the 2nd. Of course, there was no need for him to be consulted when that date was arranged because he had at that point voluntarily withdrawn, which withdrawal was accepted by the court, and he was then subsequently excused by the court.
So my understanding is for him to be back as counsel, as he says, he has to go before the court and explain why he needs to be accepted back, because it's not automatic and it will be up to the judge to agree or not.
Spot on, because remember, he didn't just walk out of court in fairness to him. He said to the judge, I am withdrawing for these reasons. The judge accepted the reasons and he was excused, and he walked out of court. He even derobed while the court was in session. So when the dates were subsequently arranged and agreed upon, he was no longer on record, so there was no need for him to be contacted.
So
he cannot now have a...
Yeah, so what's the impact here for this case? Next week, Tuesday, was 2nd August. From what I understood, the judge was going to come back and hear whether or not accused number 1 to 4 have now sorted out a new legal counsel because their counsel, Advocate Teffo, had withdrawn in that dramatic fashion. Could this further delay the process? What is going to happen now?
Look, out of respect for the judge, I do not want to preempt what he may or may not say after having been addressed. But it is of no moment. You have withdrawn. The court has accepted your withdrawal. It is up to accused number 1 to 4 to address the court through Mr. Tobani, if he himself is still on brief, to say, having noted the withdrawal of our counsel, we have elected to continue either with Mr. Tobani, or we have appointed another counsel, or we have retained the services of Advocate Teffo again. And then Advocate Teffo would then have to address the court regarding whether or not those complaints that he harbored, which resulted in his withdrawal, have they been resolved or not. If not, chances are he will not be allowed back.
Mr. Majavu, it all feels like there's so many side issues. The trial itself is about the murder of Senzo Meyiwa, and these issues by the defense for accused number 1 to 4 are not helping, in particular Advocate Teffo. Is that a correct observation?
It's spot on. In fact, not only is it not helping accused number 1 to 4, it is also adversely affecting the rights of accused number 5. Because remember, in the last interview, I did intimate that if one were representing accused number 5, one would have considered to bring an application for a separation of trial, so that when all of these side issues are unfolding at the instance of number 1 to 4, the rights of number 5 are equally protected. But I don't know what Advocate Mshololo's take may be on that. It may well be that that is one of the issues that she may wish to address the judge upon. But you are correct. These are side issues. You are losing court time. The court rolls are clocked as it is. So if you are allocated a slot in a court roll, you use it, especially if your clients are sitting in jail. You do not want to waste any more time, which does not assist your client's case. But the less I say about Advocate Teffo, the better, because I want to show him a modicum of respect as a colleague. But for me, the issue on the second is for accused 1 to 4 to tell the court what they elect to do, and then the other dates that were reserved, then the trial continues. I cannot imagine how a judge would allow these side issues to persist. But again, I say this with deference to the judge in question. These are side issues. You're spot on.
Finally, and very briefly, has it happened before in a trial where there's a number of accused represented by different counsel, where one of the accused would ask for a separate trial successfully?
Yes, it has happened. And this is the problem with multiple accused, with multiple counsels. These things happen, and this is why some of these cases would drag, for days on end. And sadly, for the Meyiwa family, they'll never really get to the bottom of the matter in terms of seeing justice finally done, or at the very least establishing the truth. So there is nothing new. It's just that the way in which it is done in this particular instance smacks of a bit of disrespect, a bit of unprofessionalism, and this is the unfortunate part about it. And I say this with all humility, but with the firmness of conviction, that this is what is unfolding before us is a travesty, a serious travesty of justice for all concerned.
Thank you very much, Zola Majavu. There is a legal expert just weighing in on the breaking story this afternoon. Advocate Malesela Teffo announcing in court papers written to the court to say he's back from in the trial as a representative, as counsel for accused number 1 to 4. A lot still has to be unpacked and understood. My colleague Stindelo Masekane, who gave us the breaking news a short while ago, she's busy trying to get more clarity. I'm sure later on this evening on ENC, you're going to get to understand a little bit more about this case.